Robin Hood Resort at the Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategies event, where we are going to do a live version of the binder, which is my strategy that gets my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. It makes it a lot easier to find cash flowing deals on the MLS when you're pretty confident that your tenant is going to ask you to increase the rent. Because one of the things that we deal with when investing in real estate is that people hate landlords. Landlords are evil, we're the enemy, nobody wants the rent to go up. So this strategy was created because I want to invest in real estate without having tenant turnover. My goal is to keep tenants as long as possible because happy tenants don't trash your property and happy tenants don't leave. This strategy is called the binder, and the reason I call it that is because I actually use a 3-ring binder to do this. This can be done through email. This can be done at a distance if you have a property manager, or if I have used this on the Section 8 program to get my housing authority to actually ask me to increase the rent. It actually just went up in January because of this. So what I have today is my friend Mike, who has a YouTube channel here, Millennial Mike, invests at a distance, has rentals in Gary, Indiana, has a property manager. Have you used the binder strategy?
Nope.
Okay.
Not yet.
So this is a chance for Mike to go through this, and there can be a time where I break the fourth wall and explain a few things. But I want to explain, in this situation, we're sitting here with several people watching. Mike, in the scenario, mock scene, if you will,
Right.
King's X,
Make it practical.
is the tenant, and I'm the evil landlord. If I came to Mike's property and there's only one thing that sets rents. It is not prices, it's not interest rates, it's not your expenses, it's not what happens to your property taxes, it's not what happens to your insurance. Tenants don't care about your expenses. If they did, a property that was paid off and a property with a mortgage would rent for different amounts. Do you even know if your landlord has a mortgage? So in this scenario, and if you pay attention, this is actually a strategy that some tenants can use to get their rent to go down. In this case, this is actually a binder that I'm using tomorrow. So I'll do a follow-up video later without the tenant saying what the actual outcome was. The area average rents are what set rents. What will properties rent for in your area? One of the reasons a lot of rents are going up is because Section 8 just had a massive increase in most markets. BAH, basic allowance for housing on military installations and around colleges for the military, has gone up. It went up 12% in 2023, 3% in 2024. So we're seeing these increases. As the area rents go up, so does your rent. The current tenant is paying $1,400 a month for a 2-bedroom. If I went to the tenant and I said, I'm raising your rent $100, I'm a jerk. The landlord that walks in the door and just says, hey, we're gonna raise your rent. That's what most people experience. Especially this became because I was buying properties on the MLS where tenants were significantly low in rents. So the tenants are living in fear that the new owner is going to come in and just double the rent or add $500 or $700 to kick them out, to rehab it, to get best area average rents, which is the best outcome for an investor. But I'm lazy. I don't want to do a rehab. And I don't want to dislocate my tenants from their house. So what I'll do is I'll coordinate with the tenant a time to come in and sit and talk. If I just purchased the property, I don't do this for 2 months. Because I didn't get to vet that tenant. I don't know their credit, their work history. I want those 2 months to make sure they pay their rents on time. There's no noise complaints. They don't call me for super trivial things. At the 2-month point, if I want to keep this tenant, then I'll do the binder strategy. You are bound by the existing lease. So however many months are remaining on that lease, you can't do this until just before that lease ends. So I make a binder. I come in with the tenant. They're expecting me to come in to do a lease renewal. So they are preemptively warned that this is going to be a conversation about their lease, so they know what to expect. So I bring in the binder. I go, hey, it's good to see you.
Nice to
I'm
see you.
the new owner of the property. You got my landlord introduction letter, which had my name and how to contact me and to coordinate this meeting. In this binder, what we're going to cover is a couple of things about this property. The first few things, this is me breaking the wall, the first few things that I'm going to share with Mike, the tenant doesn't care about. But I'm going to share information that they can verify by going online and finding the same information to give me a level of trust as their new landlord. So I show the property right from Redfin, Zillow, or some source that the tenant's going to be able to find. And I say, so the rent you're paying right now makes a lot of sense to the previous owner because they had bought it at a different price. So their homeowner's insurance and their property taxes were based on that. If you look at the current estimate, And in this case, I bought this property for $298,000. Right now, the current value is $541,000. So my current property taxes and my current insurance is based on $541,000. Your rent doesn't really make sense for me. I'm really sorry. What I want to do is talk about some things that are impacting what is going on with rents. The first thing, one of the main reasons we're having this conversation is because, breaking the fourth wall, some really stupid people are trying to vote in rent control. And if rent control goes in, I will not have the ability to raise the rents more than a certain amount in the future. So I'm forced to do this now. So I actually just did this with my entire portfolio because of people threatening rent control. So what I'm going to say, the first page in the binder, so the outside of the binder is the property that the tenant's in. The first page, if you see this right here, this is from the HUD, right? The fair market rents. You can actually go right online and see this. This is for the county that we're in. And you can see that in 2023, they were paying about $1,600 a month. Your rent is around $1,400. And as of January 2024, Section 8, the Housing Authority, is now paying $1,987 for a 2-bedroom unit in this county where your unit is. Please don't have a heart attack. I don't want to raise your rent to $1,900. That's not the goal with this conversation. The next page is a printout, or it could be an area map of several rentals in the area that have the same number of bedrooms. Remember, tenants don't think in age of building. Tenants don't think in square footage. They think in what's my parking like, how far is it from work, what's the school district like, and how many bedrooms. So this is a 2-bedroom unit that you're paying around $1,400 for. As you see, I went on here and I found a lot of the 2-bedroom units around here. They range from $2,395, $1,995, $1,995, $1,900. So they hover around where the Section 8 will pay for the rentals around here. The next couple of pages in here, as I'm showing it to you, are rentals in the areas. You're living in one side of a duplex. This is a picture of a duplex, same area. Currently 2 bedrooms, and what is the rent on this? $2,100. I've highlighted each section that I want the tenant to take notice of. 2-bedroom, 2-bath next to the rent. There's about 4 pages in here. So this is what's really important to me is, so I've bought the property, you're living here. I don't plan on moving in. A lot of times when people buy properties like this, you have to move in. I'm not moving into this property. I don't want you to leave. You understand the best financial decision would be if you were to move out, I was to spend some money rehabbing this place, I'd be getting $2,200, $2,300 a month. You're at $1,400 now. Section 8 would pay $1,900. I can rent it for more than that. I don't want to make you move, but I can't leave the rent where it is. In your opinion, if that's what everything else in this area is going for, and you're at $1,400, what do you think would be a fair amount to set your rent to?
Can I take a couple days to verify the information?
You can. I can actually leave
up?
this with you too, and it has the websites where I got the information at and everything, and then we can communicate through email going forward. Okay.
If I took those couple of days and I verify everything that you say is true, looking at the numbers that you got right there, I mean, it looks like the cheapest one I could find is still $500 more than what I'm paying right now. I can't afford $500, much less $700, $800, $900 increase. I could probably do another $250 a month in rent. Would $1,650 instead of $1,400 work?
So an increase like that would be okay, because here's the problem I would run into if you wanted to go up lower than that. The Housing Authority, Section 8, will pay $1,987. If I set your rents at $1,400 or $1,500, I could be in trouble for not charging enough, because that's what the government would pay. But a $250 increase would be fair for both sides. Understand, I can get the $1,900 or $2,000 if you moved out. I'd have to spend 10 grand fixing this place up, right? I'm going to repair things. I'm going to put in the coated locks, the motion sensor LED lights. I'm going to ask you if there's anything here that you would like fixed. The $250 seems fair. If you would like to protect yourself so that next year we don't have this same conversation, we could sign a 2-year lease. We can keep the rent where it is at $250. We're both happy at that number. And then you could stay here 2 years if you like, without another renting.
I don't have to do any additional security deposits or anything like that. Just
Nope.
$250 a month, every month for the next 24 months. We sign a contract.
We sign a contract, and yes, and then we'll have your signature notarized since it's over a year. That's a requirement in our state.
Okay.
And I'll pay for that, and that's no problem. We're in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. So one last thing that I can do to make the tenant happy when I leave. Remember, they asked for an increase of $250. $100 would have made me a jerk. Here's the last thing I'm going to do. So I'll tell you what, it's January when we're doing this. February's rent's gonna stay the same. March's rent is gonna stay the same. So how about that? You just save $500. But April 1st, I'll have it in the lease that, February, March stay the same, but April 1st, that's how months work, right? January, February, March, okay. That's when the rent will go up to $250. And then for the remainder of the lease, we'll do that. Tenant's happy because they just saved $500. But what I did is I met the state mandatory minimum of a 60-day notice for a rent increase. I leave tenants happy. $100 would have made me a jerk. $250, the tenant asked for it because they logically know how much more rent's going to be, how much it's going to be if they have to move. I don't want them to move. And I'm actually going to take care of the place. Normally, I would do this binder strategy and then I would wait 2 years. I'd go the 2 years, and in 2 years, I'd do about a 5% increase. In 2020, because of the pandemic, the eviction moratorium, and what happened with real estate, I did the binder strategy in 2021 with my entire portfolio and saw an average of 20 to 28% increase. This year, because of the threat of rent control, I just completed with everybody but one tenant, it was happening tomorrow, the binder strategy, and saw a significant increase just in case I can't do it in the future. So remember that when you're talking about rent control. It screws over the tenants and it makes the owners richer. Thank you, Mike.
But Dion, what happens if you have a property manager and you can't do the binder strategy?
So you ask the property manager what the increase is going to be, what they're planning, so that you can compare your area average rents to what they're charging, and then you use the same conversation on your property manager and you ask, why are we not going to this? And can you share this information with the tenant when you increase the rent? Because your property manager benefits from tenant turnover. They get to charge a half a month's rent or a full month's rent. So you are at different opinions here. As an owner, we want to keep tenants' longevity. As a property manager, part of their revenue system is tenant turnover. I want my tenants, even if they're going to go through a property manager, to be educated on what it's going to cost to move, what the area average rents are, and why we're doing the increase. Most property managers won't go and ask what's fair, but if you educate your property manager on what rents are, what their increase should be, and have them educate the tenants, you will experience less tenant turnover.
Okay, but Dion, I got some Section 8 tenants, or I want to do the Section 8 program, but the number that they came back to me with is kind of lower than the number they got on that program you just printed right there. So I don't want to make less money.
When you deal with the Section 8 program, which I actually just did, I did this in November because it went into effect January 1st. I did it in October because I did the same thing with the 2 months. Do the work for the agency representative. This is a government employee. If you do the work for them, they can't go to their manager and say, I really like Mike, I'm just going to raise his rents for his tenants. But if you print out off of their own website, fair market rents for that county, and you print out comps that are at or above the rent that you are increasing to. I had Section 8 in an email confirmed that $1,800 was the most they would pay for my rental in 2018. I did the binder strategy through email with that agency, and we agreed to $2,200. That is now at $3,000 for that unit, and that doesn't suck.
Nice.
Any other questions on how to use the binder strategy? Oh, the last thing I would wrap up with is I made a free course, absolutely free, no charge, no hidden fees later. DionTalk.com/binder, all of the nuances of how this strategy works. And we have a question.
Yeah. He said 250 and you agreed with that, right? What if he said I can pay 100 more?
So
What
we
your
have a
options
whiteboard
would be?
here. Do we have a marker for the whiteboard somewhere?
Marker right here.
Okay. All right. So sorry, I'm gonna invade your guys' bubble.
Yeah.
Get in.
So the question was, what if the tenant suggests an amount smaller than you are okay with? Here's where I'm going to use this visual. I draw this on a sheet of paper. The tenant is currently at $1,400, area average is $1,900, and the comps that I showed, most of them were higher than that. So I will draw a line and I will say, you're offering me $100. That does sound fair for you. Does it look fair for me? This visual, this idea of where they're at to where they're going versus where it would be if they moved out will often make the tenants come to something in the middle. They're not going to give you that full increase. They're not going to go to area average. You shouldn't get area average on a new tenant unless you completely update the place. New flooring, new paint, new light fixtures, all of the things that would make you get this area average rent. Since I'm lazy and don't want to do that and don't want to displace a tenant, I'm happy here. Until my next video, if I can make my phone work. Thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.